Hello and welcome back. To get right into it, this is a spoiler review, emphasis on the spoilers for this video, of Rule of Wolves. I don't know why I said Rule of Wolves. Before we get into the actual book itself, I want to just talk about the six predictions that I had for this book in my last video. Number one, or what I asked, what I wanted to happen, and then like predictions and stuff. Number one, I wanted the Fierda plotline and stuff to be over with and focus more on Shuhan and Novi Zem and like other countries. The first chapter of this book is from the perspective of the Queen of Shuhan. Shuhan is an incredibly integral part of this book, which is amazing. It's what I asked for. And the Fierda plotline is resolved in this book. So that did happen. I didn't predict it. I just wanted it to happen. And so that happened. Two, I said the Darkling should die, which did not happen. I predicted that Nikolai was probably going to die. That did not happen. Nikolai did not die. I said we better get a kiss or confession of love between Nikolai and Zoya, because what I thought was going to happen is like a final battle thing. Nikolai is going to like heroic sacrifice thing, and then at the end of the battle, as Nikolai is like dying in Zoya's arms, and then they confess a love for each other. So that did not happen. We did get confessions of love for each other. That we did see a kiss several different times where they kissed each other, because they just end up together, and that's Endgame is Queen Zoya and future King Nikolai. I will say, though, the last two predictions. So this is kind of a two-part thing. I said that Genya would get pregnant and that David would die. Now, for the first part, Genya getting pregnant, that was not outright said not happening, but it didn't happen. I mean, it might be retcon later, but that didn't explicitly say it as a thing, so I got that wrong. But I called David's death. It felt like it was going to happen. It felt like the right time kind of thing for that. And a huge emphasis was put on like the war creating and crafting. And David was like, he wasn't sure he wanted to keep working on crafting these missiles. Very much like Oppenheimer-y kind of. And yeah, David, I mean, I don't want to be too happy about it because obviously he died and that was very sad. And it impacted the characters a lot. And it was a very sad part to happen. But he died, and I called it. But so that is a, what is that? That's a 3 out of 6. 50% prediction. That's a fail. But I called David. That was like the out there guess. So I'm happy with that, kind of, that I got that right. Now onto the book itself. So, this book is, and I feel like I'm just like a broken record with all these books, but I'm going to say it again. This book is absolutely amazing. I think it is genuinely, if not the best, I think it is one of the best books I have ever read. Not just for the channel, not just like recently, like just ever read. It is amazing. So what I'm gonna do, there are 5 plot lines, or there's 5 perspectives. So I'm gonna go through the 5 plot perspectives. There's still only 3 main characters, but we get 2 other characters get expanded upon to see that side of the story. Not in huge roles, in like I think 5, maybe 6 chapters, like each of them. So not a whole lot of like page time. But so I'll go in smallest to largest perspectives. So we get a look at chapters called The Monk. So the monk is the Darkling, because he's possessed Yuri's body. And so these chapters didn't really, I think it was the worst perspective in the entire book, because it didn't really add much of anything, I felt. Like, it expanded on how the cult of the Starless One think of the Starless and how they think of each other. But there was not a whole lot happened really with that. Like, Darkling got his full powers back in like about halfway ish into the book, and then that's when that plot line had started, and so it was just him going around with the other going to the cult and then telling them like we got to go make a stand or whatever in battle, and like you'll see the Starless One because he's pretending not to be the Starless One, still he's still pretending to be Yuri, so he's like, if we go to battle, then the Starless Saint will like he'll save us if we are going to die in battle. And it was kind of weird, and it didn't really feel like it added a whole lot to the story. I feel like you cut those chapters out and you wouldn't lose virtually anything. I don't, I really, it felt like padding a bit, to be honest, which is unfortunate. Um, but they chapters themselves were pretty short and didn't take up a lot of time, and they were still interesting to see his character and his thought process, especially since his character's been like the villain essentially since all the way from book one, of the franchise. So that was fun. That was interesting to see. It was just it felt now like looking back at the end of it overall, it didn't feel like it added a whole lot of substance to the book itself. Like we saw a bit of the plight that was already happening. So it's like there wasn't any new information there. We saw a bit more of how the cult works with each other, but it didn't end up coming into play at all. And the whole big, oh, we're gonna go make a big old sainthood, like the Stars One will make a spectacle in this middle of the battle. That didn't really happen. So it felt just kind of like without payoff. It felt like there was no payoff to what they were setting up in those chapters, which again wasn't a whole lot of stuff. So I don't know. It felt almost. I felt like there wasn't like enough substance to the chapters themselves for it to be a meaningful part of the book. It felt just like a little. It kind of felt like padding, where there's stuff in that that's interesting, that's good to like build out lore, but there wasn't any stuff that actually was like story related or important. Um, oh God, I keep yawning. Okay, that was one of the plot lines. Another plot line, the second minor plot line was from the perspective of Mayu or Mayu. I'm not entirely sure. It's Mayu. So she is the only surviving royal guard of the Princess Henri or Henry from the Shoe from last book, and she pretended to be the princess and killed Isaac in that storyline. Very like Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. And so her plot line, the only reason we had her perspective was so that we could see a resolution to the Shoe stuff, to the Shoe plot line with the assassination plot and all that kind of thing, which was very background only on Isaac's last book, so I didn't mention it a whole lot. And it also felt like it seemed a bit easy. So, I'm gonna just say Mayu. So Mayu, Tamar, and the princess all went back to the Shoe, and were like told diplomats and everything what was happening, and then to try to trick the queen, which her name, let me pull it up because it's the first chapter. Queen Maki was, they were trying to bait the queen into activating her metal soldiers, her like the cure guard, and so they used that to then follow where that facility was, which the queen then used that to trap them. It was a big back and forth. that led to the grandmother of the queen and princess to take the queen title back. Um, and so that's where that storyline ended. And then all of the the Kier Guard were released from like their servitude to the Shu, but um, part of that like political stuff, which was very fun to read about for me at least, is they can't be like fully free because the public can't know they're without the Kier Guard, because then they would turn on the Shu royal family, and it'd be a civil war. So they can't have that. So what happened was all the Kier Guard were able to go and help Ravka, because the Shu couldn't give allies to Ravka publicly, because then that started a war between Fierda and Shu. But the Kier Guard aren't real, so the Shu can give that to Ravka without publicly siding with Ravka. And so that was kind of nice. That was how that plotline factored into stuff. But that overall, yeah, just kind of like a little side plot thing. Which, now to get to the actual main stories. And I think of the three, I think the worst one was probably Nikolai, because he didn't really have his own his own arc in this story too much, it felt like. Part of the problem I feel was there was a lot of overlap between him and Zoya, which there was a lot last book. But Zoya's very easily identifiable as like all the Grisha stuff is to Zoya, and so Nikolai doesn't really have like his thing, because like it's like, oh, the military stuff, but then Zoya's also the general of the second army, so like she's also in the military stuff. So Nikolai doesn't really ever have like, this is his plot line. And like his thing was kind of trying to get rid of the demon, but now he's kind of on terms with that in this book. So he didn't really have dedicated like, this is my plot line. It was like he was very much put himself on in the forefront of battle throughout this whole book. There were 3 distinct battles in this book that I can, or I guess 4. I'll say 4. There's the opening one. There's like an early battle where Nikolai's out on the front lines and everything, and it's where it's revealed about the antidote with the path to the Novi Zem, the Grisha, the Judah Prem antidote for the Grisha, which was an amazing scene that was one of my favorite scenes in the entire book, to be honest, is when like the end of the battle, because the Fjerdans all retreat when all the Grisha are released, and it's like, oh, we just lost all of our soldiers because we didn't bring a ton of ourselves, and so they all like retreated a lot of it. And so then seeing like the Grishas that we know, like Adric and Leone, be like talking to the Grisha who were just freed, it's almost like mind control, because the drug's so powerful, it takes over everything you do and think and see and say. Like, you can't think, you don't process who you're looking at, you're just seeing somebody in the way of getting more of the drug, which is just horrible. And so that was a really powerful moment, I felt, at least for me, where all of them are like waking up and are like, wait, like Adric, like Leone, where am I? And like didn't know, like that was a very powerful scene, I felt, to me at least. I thought that was a very, very good scene. And Nikolai's right there and everything too. Nikolai's in the forefront of battle almost like the entire time. In retaliation to that, you have the bombing of Os Ulto, the capital of Ravka, which was thought to be impossible. Done by the Fjerdans, and they should not have been able to. It's never really explained as to how, like, because Ravka's intelligence was like, oh, the Fjerdans can't get flyers this far into the country, and then they did, and then they didn't really explain how it happened without them knowing that could happen. It wasn't really, but that's a minor nitpick. The bombing of Os Ulto was very interesting, because Nikolai let the demon free because they're kind of one and the same now. They understand each other because they are very, like, they just are the same thing now. And so the demon just tore apart the Fjerdan flyers, and almost ripped apart almost all of the actual, like, pilots except for one, because he wanted one pilot to go back and, like, incite fear in the Fjerdans, which didn't end up working. But it's the it's what you're doing that matters. That's what your goal is. um but and that's what kills David, is the bombing of Os Alto, which happens on Genya and David's wedding night, which is very, very sad. That was very sad. It felt very much like Genya, who is a great character, was a lot put on the back burner this duology, especially this book. But when she is there, it is very emotional and impactful scenes for sure. And the third battle is near the end of the book. It's like the last big, like, actiony thing, and it's a kind of a battle on two fronts, where there is the Fjerdan navy attacking West Bravka through the water, because the navy. I don't know why I had to explain that. I don't know why I explained that. And Nikolai's not there for that part, because he is up north with the ground troops against, like, the Druskil and the more drugged Grisa. And it is where he has to let his demon out, and everybody sees it. The Ravkans, the Fjerdans, everybody sees that he is, like, a demon, and recognize that as the Darkling's power. And so that's when he's like, has to be like, I do this and save Ravka, and I might have to give up my throne, but if I don't do this, then Ravka's gone. A free Ravka will no longer exist. And I think, like, his character is very fascinating and interesting to me a lot. And then after that, he renounces his crown and pledges Zoya as the queen, which, that was very funny to me, because there's been, like, back and forth throughout both of these books of, like, oh, what if Zoya was just like, Zoya, you should just be the queen or whatever. And she was like, no, I don't want that. That wouldn't be good for me. I don't want to be the queen. And then that just happens, and in the middle of, like, and that happens afterwards. So that's in front of the Fjerdan delegation, all of the Ravkan, like, ministers. I believe the Kirch are there as well, and so it's like, we can't say no to that, really, because that just looked really bad for Ravka. So she just has to accept that, and then it's just like, oh, she's gonna kill Nikolai when they get alone. And then when they got alone, then they kissed. So I mean, that's kind of the same thing, not really at all. But they finally met their feelings for each other, and that was a very nice moment. I do want to quickly mention and go back a bit, because between the bombing and the final battle, there is an adventure to Ketterdam. And to be honest, it feels very much like a big old piece of fan service, and I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. Because it's just like, we need more stuff, so they need more titanium for their bombs and missiles. And so they go to the Kirch, who have it, and have to steal it. So they work with Kaz Brecker, Jesper Fahey, and Wyland Van Eck, which is awesome. And they use... Okay, so a bit of explanation. Earlier in the book, near the very beginning, Nikolai needs to get another extension on the loans from the Kirch, because Ravka's in crippling debt to the Kirch from their years of war. And so to get the extension on the loans, they have to give Kirch their plans for underwater, like submarines, essentially, that are untraceable and can blow up ships. Because the Kirch want to do that to the Zamini, so that the Kirch can have more control over the Jirta supply. But then Nikolai doesn't want to hurt the Zamini because the Jirta, partly because they're mostly peaceful overall, and I've always actually openly support Ravka, but also all of the Jirta supply is how you make the antidote. So what Nikolai does is he gives the Kirch the plans for the submarines, but then turns around and gives the Zamini plans for like better flyers and airships, so that they don't have to use the sea and they'll be fine. And so that results in the Kirch, who a lot of which deal in like slavery, which is what Inej, who's mentioned a lot and is seen only seen in like a page, unfortunately, and I love Inej. But so Inej, the Wraith pirate who goes around killing slavers, is not great for money in Kirch. So when Nikolai goes to Kaz, Jesper and Wylan for like help stealing titanium, he says that if they can get the titanium, he'll give Kaz a device that will allow ships to detect the submarines. So the Kaz can give that to Inej. And that motivates like the whole thing. I think that's very fun. There's even a line in there from Wylan saying that we don't like doing illegal activities. And then Kaz turns around and says that then Kaz says it's for Inej. And so Wylan's like, oh, why didn't you say that sooner? Just to show how much they care for they care for each other and like the crows. And that was it was great. That was just an amazing couple chapters. A few, like 4 or 5 or 6 chapters. Those were all great. Looking back, it feels a bit fan servicey because like, oh no, they need more titanium, and then they didn't really use missiles that much anyway. But again, it was a really good story, and fan service is good and usually necessary sometimes. And I think if it didn't feel forced or out of place, it felt good for the story. Now, so that's Nikolai's story overall, kind of out of order. Zoya's is a lot more focused on, because like we got a lot of Zoya's like personal history in the last book of like her being like almost sold at 9 and then like her aunt and all that. So this book leans more towards her like familial history because she is half Suli. And the Suli are this nomadic like group of people who have lived in Ravka's lands before Ravka was even the name, and they're very like frowned upon for no apparent reason. Just racism, and that is a big part of Zoya's character. This book about like her inner struggles of like accepting herself. And I thought that part was really cool. That very interesting, very cool. And I think the Suli are a very interesting group of people in this series. Zoya also gets a lot more powerful in this book, and we see a lot more of different sides to her. Like in this book, we find out that she has a secret garden. Because Zoya is like this big tough general. She wouldn't have like girly things like a garden, but she keeps a garden and plants different like flowers and plants for everybody that dies, so that she remembers everyone. And it's really sad because, I mean, like, that's an amazing, like, that part really helps build her character so much, and she is my favorite character, and it was close before, and it's no longer close. It's not close in the slightest. Zoya is my favorite character in the entire franchise. I think Zoya, then Inej, and then Nikolai, and then Kaz, I think. But because this is in a Nikolai chapter, actually, when we see this, because it's Nikolai, like, following Zoya. And Zoya knows the whole time, because she's part dragon from last book, so she's part dragon. She can hear everything. She can hear everything. She can smell emotion if she's trying. Like, you can't sneak up on Zoya, especially not anymore. But the first thing that she says is, "I've run out of room." Like, this massive area that she has to plant different kinds of vegetation. The first time we see it, and the first time she talks about it, is saying, "I don't have enough room," which seems very much like a minor thing, but it puts into perspective so much as to how much loss Ravka as a whole, and Zoya specifically, has had to deal with and go through and move on from. And it's really sad, especially when, like, it's awful. And it's amazing that she has that. It's amazing that she has, like, this thing of remembrance for everyone, and that's just beautiful and amazing. But then it's just so sad that the first thing we hear is, "I've run out of room." And if I'm remembering properly, this is, I think this is before the bombing. Or no, I don't remember. It's probably almost reading the book, so with reading books, like, fast, I'm not very fast by most standards of what fast would be, but I read the chapters, like I don't break too long between chapters, so it's like I don't remember the exact order of things. But I now want to say it's after the bombing, and so because I think it's her looking for, like, a spot for David, like, for plants for David, and she's like, "I don't have any more room," and it's like, yeah, Ravka has been in constant war with everyone, and then they just in Shadow of Bone had a massive civil war, and now there's just this massive bombing of the capital where all of the Grisha live, that almost took out the school where little kid Grisha go, which that would have been just very dark and sad. But her character is so amazing, and the writing is very powerful and very emotional, and it's very fun as the reader to read about this hugely powerful character having to deal with, like, these very human things, like loss, and, like, dealing with that. And that seems kind of silly to, like, but so often you have, like, there's very few times where, like, a story will pause for grief. Like, think in Star Wars, right? Like, there's no spot where the story kind of pauses a minute to be like, "Oh, we lost all these people." Like, there's never a spot in the story where it's like, "Oh no, we just blew up Alderaan." Like, it's just kind of like a thing that happens and they kind of move on. But, like, they sit and they stop for this, like, whole chapter dedicated to this, of, like, it's grief, and it sucks to go through, and that was a very good part of the book to me. I thought that was a very standout part of this book for me. Now it got okay. Moving to more lighter topics. She's a dragon. She just fully turned into a dragon, and it was awesome. And I was confused because I thought that was I thought that was implied the last book, but I guess it wasn't, and I just assumed something that wasn't happening because I assumed she turned into a dragon last book, but I guess that I'm wrong. But she turned into a dragon this time, and it was awesome. And she's this massive dragon who like breathes lightning, and it was awesome. It was awesome. I'm just gonna keep saying that. It was just absolutely amazing. And then she is, of course, now the queen of. She is the queen of Ravka, and that's just I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. She's the queen of Ravka, and that's an amazing thing for her. I think it's an amazing thing for the future of the world. I think of this world because having not only a Grisha, but a Grisha and a Suli and a just like a female who's not a Lantsov taking the Ravkan throne is huge for Ravka and just for the future of this world as a whole. And I really want more. And as of now, other than the novella for Six of Crows, nothing's been announced. But Leigh Bardugo has said that she's open to writing another a third Six of Crows book, which is what's set up at the end of this. Like a third book with Kaz and Inej and all the crows, but that is not yet like confirmed to be a thing because she's working on other projects right now, which makes sense. You don't want to be locked into one thing the whole time. I mean, look at Rick Riordan. He's stuck in that one franchise probably forever, to be honest. No complaining about Percy Jackson though. Anyway, I thought it was amazing, and I really liked the book. But we're not done with the perspectives yet. There's one character I have not mentioned. And it's because I was saving the best for last. And I'm surprised to say this because this plotline was my least favorite of the last book. But I think it is the best plotline in this book. And that is the Nina plot. The Nina in Fierda. And there are so many moving parts throughout this entire thing. And I feel like it's the most complex story. Because you have the whole point of her cover in the Brum household. And you have her, but all these different things are happening at once. So you have that's happening, and it's also this event. It's like how can I find it if I just look through it right now? Probably not, but let's see. We are the dragon. Okay, I'm in Agenya. I'm in a Nina chapter. Do we get to see what it's called? Oh, it's just called Heartwood. Okay. So it's this event Heartwood where these Fierdan girls have to go and like try to get offered a proposal by like more like noblemen men. And so what Nina and Han are trying to do is use the crown prince, to try to broker peace between Ravka and Fjerda throughout this book. And so he's in poor health, but Han, being a heartrender and a healer, heals him with her powers as a Grisha, even if she's trying to stay hidden. And the queen, so the prince's mother, calls Nina into a meeting to be like, what is going on with this? And Nina claims to be a speaker of Del, because she can, like, talk to the dead. So she talks to the dead that she can, like, hear in the halls of the Ice Court, and fully convinces the queen that Grisha are the children of Del. Del, which was like their god that they worship. Which works very easily, but I don't think that's bad at all, because the queen is just desperate for her son to be healthy. So that's happening, and the prince sucks. He's, because of how Fjerda functions, and it's like this place of power and very much a like man eat man world, and like the strong will survive and like the weak will die. And so the prince being really weak is like frowned upon as like a leader. And so now that he's getting stronger, he takes that as like permission to just be horrible to everyone, and like slap his personal guard, and like beat and whip people because they can't do anything about it. They can't do anything back, anything at all. So that culminates in him taking Han into a private room where he slaps her and says, "Hit me," which she can't. So we hear about this from her later on in the book, like a chapter later. And so she can't do anything to him, so he hits her harder and says, "Hit me." And then, like, that just keeps happening until she snaps and uses her power to crush his heart, which kills him. And so she uses her powers to disguise the prince's body as her own, and then disguises herself as the prince. And then throws the prince's body, looking like her, out of the window. Because they're like on this really high platform. So she throws his body out the window, and then like impact, so that it looks like she's the one so it looks like she died, and the prince killed her, and no one can do anything about that because he's the prince. And then she is now the prince, so then she can now broker this peace, which is partly why it's like, okay, this plot, like, they're not gonna be enemies anymore, because Grisha is now the king. And then they very much pushed the relationship between Nina and Han in this book, which was set up and implied to be a thing that was going to happen in the last book. And when I do these, I look into the book a bit online before I make the video on it, to like see what other people's thoughts are. And a lot of people do not like the Nina and Han relationship. They're like, oh, Nina was with Matthias, and they're rushing this, and yada yada yada. And I wholeheartedly disagree. I don't think it felt rushed. They didn't kiss or admit feelings for each other until near the end of this book. And like it has now been almost 2 years since Matthias has died. And I don't know, it didn't feel like it was rushed to me. I felt that it made sense with the characters. It didn't feel like it was, oh, Nina was never implied to be gay or bisexual before, and it was like that was always, like, she was never fully just straight. That was never in the Six of Crows. It even says, like, in that book that she'll flirt with anything, even like a pair of shoes. So clearly she has no problem between genders and between sexes. So that was not a problem to me. And then Han, there's a bit of also transgenderism, where it talks about how Han has never felt right in her body until she had to disguise herself as the prince, who of course is now disguising herself, who was born a female, disguising herself into a male's body. And she's like, I never felt more like myself than I do right now, like now in this body, which felt like a very, very, I mean, I am not trans, and but speaking to like people and friends who are trans and have read this book, that is a very good representation of transgenderism, which I'm not going to comment on that or not, really, like, my own opinions, because I don't have my own opinions on that. But like, I didn't have a problem with it. I felt like that made sense for the story. I thought that was good and fine. And now Nina's gonna live in Fierda with Han and be just the queen, which, so the king and queen of Fierda will be Grisha, which is really funny to think about. That there's like, oh, this super bigotry country is being run by people that they're bigots against. That's kind of funny to me. But no, I mean, that's kind of how that whole thing wraps up, and I really didn't go into a whole lot of detail, because while this is a spoiler review, I'm not being like, oh yeah, here's a spoiler of every single thing that happens, and every single word in the book, because that's not, if I was going to sit here and spoil the whole book, I would sit here and read the book to you, and I'm not going to do that either. If you want to read the book, then you should get the book yourself, which I fully recommend. I think this book is absolutely amazing. And I just thought that it was a very, very good story, and I really want more books in this franchise. But this is it for now on stories in this on like mainline books. If I end up obtaining the 3 other books, it's like there's one with the Darkling, The Lives of the Saints, and then there's one more. I don't remember what it's called, but if I end up getting any of those 3 books, I will gladly read them and make videos on them as well. Might be a bit different because it won't be like full-on stories, I don't think. So it might be a bit different of a review and ranking. Won't work too well. But yeah, so current rankings, which I'll make so I'll just update the ranking now for anyone watching on the Grishaverse. We have Rule of Wolves is number 1. Then we have Crooked Kingdom is number 2. Because I've gone back and forth off camera, because 2, 3, and 4 are virtually interchangeable for me. I think they're all amazing. But so number 2, Crooked Kingdom. Number 3, King of Scars. Number 4, Six of Crows. Number 5 is Siege and Storm. Number 6 is Rune and Rising. And the worst book, but still a very good book, was the first one, Shadow and Bone. Which, overall, these books have pretty much only gotten better as they go on. And I think they are all amazing. And yeah, I think that's all I really have to say for this video. So I wanted to add now here at the end of the video, because I didn't mention it in before, what my next book is going to be. And so I don't think I've said this before, but the goal of this this video series, is to read all of my bookshelf and provide a ranking so that I can get a ranking of my own opinions on these books. And a lot of these are first-time reads, and those take priority over rereads. And so the franchise, if any book in the franchise I haven't read yet, that franchise takes precedent. And so in order. So we have gone through the, I'm going to turn the camera around and I'll point out and I'll talk about what's going on with that whole thing. And then I'll end with what book we're doing next. So we've just finished the Grisha, oh, this is messed up. We've just finished the Grishaverse franchise. So that's all of up to here. This book I have not read yet, but I can't do it until I have because I'm not going to start a series I don't have the whole, all of. So that's put on the back burner. These aren't real. This book I've read before. So this we'll get back to. The Thunder Claire franchise, Shadowhunter franchise, I'm skipping over because I've already read it, and so I'll go back and do a reread in the future. So that brings us to here, Hunger Games. I've already read, and so that will go back. These books, which are kind of all standalone, so don't need a whole series, but I've read them already. These sentence books I don't have all of. There's a book 5. But W.'s Lost I've read, and then these are not real books. These are like guidebooks and stuff. So it brings us all the way down now to shelf 3, which this is not a real book, and so our next book is this, which is a omnibus of a full trilogy by Richard Fierce, Dragons of Essental. So that will have Throne of Deceit, Runemark, and Empire of Serpents. So while this is one book, I will make 3 different videos on this, because there's 3 different books here, so they'll each get their own video. Ignore the Christmas gifts and everything, decorations and everything. It's time of filming this, so. But so that ends the video as a whole. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of Rule of Wolves, and give me your own rankings of the Grishaverse. And if you disagree with any of my thoughts in the video, let me know, and we can have a discussion in the comments. I'm open to anyone's ideas.